Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. Every heart sings a song, incomplete, until another heart whispers back. Those who wish to sing always find a song. At the touch of a lover, everyone becomes a poet. We could easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Only the dead have seen the end of war. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. Do not train a child to learn by force or harshness, but direct them to it by what amuses their minds, so that you may be better able to discover with accuracy the peculiar bent of the genius of each. The heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior to yourself. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. Never discourage anyone who continually makes progress, no matter how slow. Love is a serious mental disease. One of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. The measure of a man is what he does with power. If women are expected to do the same work as men, we must teach them the same things. I'm trying to think, don't confuse me with facts. Those who tell the stories rule society. There is truth in wine and children. Human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. Education is teaching our children to desire the right things. Courage is knowing what not to fear. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help, and what they cannot. You should not honor men more than truth. When men speak ill of thee, live so as nobody may believe them. The beginning is the most important part of the work. Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything. Attention to health is life's greatest hindrance. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. To be conquered by yourself is of all things most shameful and vile. The God of love lives in a state of need. It is a need. It is an urge. It is a homeostatic imbalance. Like hunger and thirst, it's almost impossible to stamp out. The punishment which the wise suffer who refuse to take part in the government is to live under the government of worse men. All men are by nature equal, made all of the same earth by one workman, and however we deceive ourselves, as dear unto God is the poor peasant as the mighty prince. The empty vessel makes the loudest sound. People are like dirt. They can either nourish you and help you grow as a person, or they can stunt your growth and make you wilt and die. This city is what it is because our citizens are what they are. Ignorance, the root and stem of all evil. The measure of a man is what he does with power. At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. Honesty is for the most part less profitable than dishonesty. No one is a friend to his friend who does not love in return. Music is the movement of sound to reach the soul for the education of its virtue. Justice means minding one's own business and not meddling with other men's concerns. Astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another. Ignorance of all things is an evil either terrible nor excessive, nor yet the greatest of all. But great cleverness and much learning, if they be accompanied by a bad training, are a much greater misfortune. He who is of calm and happy nature will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition youth and age are equally a burden. Science is nothing but perception. There's a victory and defeat, the first and best of victories, the lowest and worst of defeats which each man gains or sustains at the hands not of another, but of himself. The eyes of the soul of the multitudes are unable to endure the vision of the divine. The direction in which education starts a man will determine his future in life. Better a little which is well done, than a great deal imperfectly. Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. There is no harm in repeating a good thing. Justice in the life and conduct of the state is possible only as first it resides in the hearts and souls of the citizens. Democracy is a charming form of government, full of variety and disorder, and dispensing a sort of equality to equals and unequals alike. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. We are twice armed if we fight with faith. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. A hero is born among 100, a wise man is found among 1,000, but an accomplished one might not be found even among 100,000 men. The greatest wealth is to live content with little. Thinking, the talking of the soul with itself. No one ever teaches well who wants to teach, or governs well who wants to govern. Love is the joy of the good, the wonder of the wise, the amazement of the gods. Rhetoric is the art of ruling the minds of men. Nothing in the affairs of men is worthy of great anxiety. Let parents bequeath to their children not riches, but the spirit of reverence. Necessity, the mother of invention. He who commits injustice is ever made more wretched than he who suffers it. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. If a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. When the mind is thinking, it is talking to itself. To be sure I must, and therefore I may assume that your silence gives consent. Knowledge becomes evil if the aim be not virtuous. As the builders say, the larger stones do not lie well without the lesser. No man should bring children into the world who is unwilling to persevere to the end in their nature and education. When there is an income tax, the just man will pay more and the unjust less on the same amount of income. Life must be lived as play. Truth is the beginning of every good to the gods, and of every good to man. For good nurture and education implant good constitutions. This and no other is the root from which a tyrant springs. When he first appears, he is a protector. Courage is a kind of salvation. The most important part of education is proper training in the nursery. Philosophy is the highest music. No law or ordinance is mightier than understanding. He who steals a little steals with the same wish as he who steals much, but with less power. Democracy passes into despotism. Philosophy begins in wonder. It is right to give every man his due. Cunning is but the low mimic of wisdom. Apply yourself both now and in the next life. Without effort, you cannot be prosperous. Though the land be good, you cannot have an abundant crop without cultivation. No one knows whether death, which people fear to be the greatest evil, may not be the greatest good. Wonder is the feeling of the philosopher, and philosophy begins in wonder. Poets utter great and wise things which they do not themselves understand. Our object in the construction of the state is the greatest happiness of the whole, and not that of any one class. The learning and knowledge that we have is, at the most, but little compared with that of which we are ignorant. They certainly give very strange names to diseases. Wisdom alone is the science of other sciences. It is a common saying, and in everybody's mouth, that life is but a sojourn. To prefer evil to good is not in human nature, and when a man is compelled to choose one of two evils, no one will choose the greater when he might have the less.